Welcome back to Power in the Pause. I'm your host, Chelsea, and this is the space where we slow down, breathe for a second, and remember that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is pause. And today, sis, I want to talk about what happens when healing becomes just another thing you feel like you have to get right. Because women don't already have enough on the damn to-do list. Work, relationships, family, taking care of everyone, taking care of ourselves. And now we're adding be healed to the list. Emotionally regulated, self-aware, securely attached, good at boundaries, well-rested, hydrated, unbothered. Like, girl, when do we get to just be a person? Because healing can become just another form of perfectionism. If I've really healed, I wouldn't get jealous, angry, overthink, need reassurance, make a bad choice. We start thinking like that. And that's what I want to talk about today. You can know better and still occasionally act like an asshole. That's actually part of being a human. Because healing doesn't eliminate your humanity. Think about how often we turn a completely normal human experience into evidence that something is wrong with us. You might get jealous, and instead of thinking, oh, I'm feeling jealous, that's interesting, you think, oh my God, I thought I was healed. You might need reassurance from someone you love. And instead of, I'm feeling insecure right now and I could really use some reassurance, we start thinking, why am I like this? Why am I so needy? Maybe you make a choice that you knew wasn't great, and suddenly you're questioning your entire personal growth journey. I literally know better. WTF. Yes, you do, sis, and you still did it. Welcome to being a fucking person. You can know better and still occasionally act like an asshole. And truly, that's not a character flaw, that's humanity. Now, I'm not saying healing means we just throw our hands in the air and say, well, I'm human, every time we hurt somebody or make a shitty choice. That's not accountability. That's avoidance dressed in a cute wellness matching set. There is a difference between being human and refusing to grow. Healing doesn't mean that you never mess up. It means you can mess up and actually do something with it. You can say, that wasn't okay. I was defensive, or I was jealous, or I handled that badly. I was looking for validation. I got scared and reacted. And then instead of spiraling into, I'm a terrible person and I clearly haven't healed, you can say, okay, what happened there? Curiosity. That's the pause. So, sis, take a breath with me. Inhale through your nose. Pause. Exhale through your mouth. Again. And just notice if you've been holding yourself to an impossible standard of what a quote unquote healed woman is supposed to look like. Maybe you've decided that healed you doesn't get jealous. Maybe you've decided that healed you doesn't get angry, doesn't need anyone, doesn't overthink, doesn't have bad days, doesn't make mistakes, doesn't get messy, doesn't get triggered, doesn't regress, doesn't struggle, doesn't need reassurance, doesn't want to be chosen, doesn't want approval, doesn't have ugly feelings. And if that's the version of healing that you've been chasing, sis, I need you to know you are allowed to be a whole ass human being. Okay, take another breath and release. You don't have to become emotionally flawless to be emotionally healthy. I actually think one of the most beautiful parts of healing is that you start having a different relationship with your own mess. You don't have to immediately fix it. You don't judge it. You don't have to turn every emotion into a lesson. You can just notice, oh, I'm feeling a little bit jealous there. Okay. All right, I'm really angry. Okay. I want someone to tell me I'm doing a good job. Okay. I made a choice that I'm not proud of. Okay. And then you get curious. Not cruel, not critical, curious. Because your emotions aren't necessarily proof that you're going backward. Sometimes they're just information, and sometimes they're just emotions. Not everything needs a 5-step healing protocol. Sometimes you're just pissed off. Sometimes you need a hug. Sometimes you need someone to say, girl, you are absolutely not crazy. That situation was fucked up. And sometimes you're going to realize that actually, maybe you were being a little bit crazy. And you know what? You can own that too. I think we need to stop confusing healing with perfection. Because if healing becomes another way we monitor ourselves, criticize ourselves, and constantly evaluate whether we're quote unquote doing it right, then we've just taken the same old perfectionism and put crystals around it. We've taken the inner critic and taught him therapy vocabulary. And now he's saying, interesting that you're experiencing jealousy. Perhaps this is an attachment wound you should explore. Sir, Craig, I'm just annoyed. Go sit down. And maybe that's the real work. Not becoming someone who never gets messy, but becoming the woman who doesn't abandon herself when she does. A woman who can say, I don't love how I handled that, but I sure still love me. I am disappointed in myself, but I'm not going to destroy my life over it. I see I have work to do here, but I don't have to become my own punishment. Now that's healing, not perfection. So if you've been waiting to become this perfectly regulated, completely unbothered, endlessly self-aware, goddess wellness version of yourself before you give your permission to feel proud of how far you've actually come, sis, I want you to reconsider. Because maybe healing isn't about becoming someone who never needs reassurance. Maybe it's learning how to ask for reassurance without being ashamed that you needed it. Maybe it's not never getting angry. Maybe it's learning how to be angry without using your anger as a weapon. Maybe it's not never making a bad choice, but it's learning how to repair when you do. Maybe it's not never getting triggered, but maybe it's learning that being triggered doesn't mean you're back at square one. And maybe it's not becoming someone who never has messy moments. Maybe it's becoming a woman who knows this moment is messy and it's not the whole story of who I am. Before you go this week, I want you to reflect on this question. Where have I turned healing into another standard I have to perform perfectly? And what would you change if you gave yourself permission to be a little more human there? You don't have to be perfectly healed. You don't have to have it figured out. You don't have to respond perfectly every time. You get to be a work in progress. You get to have ugly feelings. You get to make mistakes. You get to learn. You get to repair. You get to grow. And you get to still really, really like yourself while doing it. Sis, thank you for spending this time with me today on Power in the Pause. If this hit home, share it with another woman who needs to know there's humanity in healing. So take a breath, give yourself a little grace, and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is pause. I'll see you next time, sis.